Alright, so welcome to today's class. Alright, I'm sharing my screen. Please indicate when you can see my screen. Can anyone see my screen? Hello? Can anyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I can see.
Alright, so yes, this is the slide from last week, and last week we were able to cover the basics of HTML and CSS, right? Yes, I might not have gone into teaching you one after the other what it entails, but I tried to. Please help me mute yourself, Ibrahim. Help me mute yourself, please. Can you hear me, Ibrahim? Alright, so yes, I was talking about different concepts in what's the name, HTML and CSS, basically, right? And towards the end, I gave us like a take home, basically, on 3 concepts, right? And I also communicated that on the WhatsApp group, which is on CSS combinators, on the box model, and responsive design, right? So, how many of us actually went into, like, checked out what those entail? Hello? Ibrahim, please help me mute yourself. Okay, so great. Yes, how many of us were able to like check out the concepts that I said we should check out from last week's class? Please, I don't want to be the only one speaking in this class. Unmute yourself and talk if you know the answer. There's no right or wrong answer. If you don't know it, will correct you. Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yes, hello. We can hear you.
Yes, I revised some of the things you said in the last class. About maybe sometimes we don't know what is being talked about. Like maybe there's maybe inline what's it called?
Inline and
maybe
block elements.
Inline or block element, yes.
Yes.
Maybe attributes and stuff like that. So I try to go through the W3 curriculum, even though I'm still on the HTML. And yes, so I went through what you talked about. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So well done. Who just spoke? I think yes, Akorede. Well done. So yes, today's topic, right, is supposed to be week 1 and week 2 basically. It's supposed to be like a review on HTML and CSS and JavaScript and maybe basics of JavaScript, right? But for the sake of the people joining the class and maybe their knowledge gap, I would dwell on this place a little bit so that it doesn't look like I'm jumping straight into JavaScript and nobody understands what I'm saying. So to begin, I want us to like do a little practical on the little knowledge we have with HTML and possibly CSS. Or let's just start with HTML alone, basically. Right. So for HTML, I want us to do like a little task. We're going to do it together, and I need everybody's contribution. Right. So yes, I'm going to open up our full project from last week because we started working on something like a demonstration on something. So I would share my screen generally, my whole screen, and then we're going to do something little, right? So one of the things we're going to be working on is something very simple. Now, see this slide on my screen, right? This slide has a text here and has also some text here and has some image here, right? So we're going to be using HTML to recreate that particular slide, this particular slide on my screen, right? So I feel this is a good way for us to learn because as front-end developers, first you are a UI designer, or should I say you're a UI developer. You're building user interfaces where users can actually interact with whatever you built, and then you also collect their informations. Then you try to communicate to the backend server, basically. So, God helping us during the course of this program, we're going to see how all this is done. So, but let's take, for instance, now this particular slide is our UI, and this is the design given to us by the designer. How do we go about it? So we're just going to try to implement this using HTML, basically HTML and basic CSS to do this. Right. So please watch me as I do this, and then we'll go briefly into today's topic. Right. So I'm opening my screen now. One sec, please. So let me present my entire screen. So yeah, I'm trying to open the folder from last week's class, and then we'll do it together. So I'm going to be asking everybody, what do you think? What do we think we can do first? So please feel free to unmute your mic as I call you, to ask you what we need to do, and then I'll also tell you what to do about it. Remember, the goal is to implement a basic HTML document. How do we do it with HTML and a little bit of CSS? Right, so that's what we want to do. Right, so yes, this is it. HTML practice. Yes, last week we created 2-page HTML and style.css, where we're using to do a practice of what we're learning. So today I would create a new file, a new HTML file, and I say example 1.html. Alright, so yes, I just disabled my copilot. Anyway, so let's start. Right. Let's begin. So this is a blank HTML page, right? And the goal is to create something like this. I don't know if you can see my screen. This slide, basically. So we're trying to implement something like this. Our target is to implement the text, this text, and maybe an image, a random image. It could be this image or any other image. But let's see how to go about it. How do we do that? Please mute yourself. Let's talk, basically. So what do I do first and foremost when I come to a blank HTML page? Please, I need contributions.
Okay. So can I talk?
Yes, go ahead, please.
All right. So you define the program language that you want. Let me call it the program language. Excuse me, please. Okay. So doc type HTML. So you open the tag doc type HTML, and you close the tag. Yeah. Then you will now the next element will be the header. You define. I think that's where the title will be. The title of the project.
Yes, okay.
Of the page or the project. Okay. We have built a slide. Then the next thing is to go with the body. Yes, I think that's body. Okay. Then on the body, you can now add a maybe paragraph, maybe div,
and the rest of them. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So let's start with that now. HTML. Now, last week I took my time to explain something called the boilerplate. Right. So boilerplates, you hear this term a lot when you are watching tutorials, you are writing code, even communicating with your teammate too. So from all the things you just described, right, there are regular HTML boilerplates in the sense that for every HTML page or document you are going to be writing, you must declare the doc type, you must declare the header, you must declare the body, right? And because it's a boilerplate, there's a short way to go about it. So I can just write HTML5 and then press enter, select the HTML5, press enter. So it will give us the doc type, the HTML, header, and body. And that's one good thing with VS Code. That's why VS Code is very popular, because it helps with developer productivity. So there are a lot of things you would write. So see me now, I've skipped writing all those things because of, so to start with again, HTML, you just type HTML and then select the 5. Now there's a reason why you're selecting the one for 5. If you select the one for 4, it just displays the HTML tag. But the HTML5 gives you the boilerplate for HTML5 documents. Right? So that being said, we can continue. We can give the title a random title. What should I even call it? Let me just say UI implementation. Right. And then most of the things we are going to be doing is going to be in the body tag. Right. So the first things first, I'm going to refer back to the design I'm working on. What's the first thing we're going to be working on? This is the first thing we're going to be doing. Right. We want to see how to replicate this line of code. Right. And this particular line and this image. So it's very easy. When I mean it's very easy, I mean with time, with practice, right, you get to understand how these things are done. Right? So somebody else should suggest which tag do I use to write this HTML block and inline elements.
H1.
H1. Okay. So why did you select H1?
Because H1 is the biggest. I don't know how to explain this.
Yes, H1 is a header type, right? Header tag.
The header type.
Yes. So
but it has the biggest size, I think. Okay.
So basically, yes, H1 by default has the biggest size. Right? So there's a reason why I added that by default. I don't know if I'm in my first class on Saturday, I established some facts that you can literally achieve anything using a couple of tags. So I can use P to actually achieve it. Right? As far as I know how to style it well. But for semantic purpose, when I mean semantics, I talked about that in the last class. Sorry, but I'll keep repeating myself. So H1 it is for now. Right? So let me copy out the text and put inside the H1. Right. So the next thing we want to achieve is this guy. But first and foremost, let me launch this particular document so that we can preview it in the browser. So someone needs to unmute themselves. I'm hearing feedbacks. Okay, thank you. So yes, so for the first one now, we've written that. Let's try and preview how it looks like on our browser. Right, so yes, there's a way to launch this actually. So I would, for the sake of this class, I'll just make it shorter. I'm using an extension called Live Server. Right, so on VS Code, you can install the extension Live Server. Right, but if you go through W3 Schools or any other resource, you see a manual way to actually enter. Right, so Live Server, all you just need to do is install the extension and you'll be able to use it directly on your browser. So that's what I'm running. On the norm, I'll have to locate where this file is and open it with Google Chrome or whichever browser you're using. But I'll open it with Live Server right now. Basically, so you can do your research more about it is an extension. So yes, this is how our code looks like right now. Well, for the sake of this demo, we would skip some things, but I just want us to see, like, get that confidence to your first design, because this is something, right? You can be giving design like this. Let me check. Right, okay, this is a mobile design I'm working on, but most times, right, when you are onboarded as a front-end engineer in a company or an organization, almost always every time you are given a Figma design, and to be honest, as a beginner it could be overwhelming, because you'll be like, it's me that want to build all these things from scratch. So this is a mobile design, but you can also get a web version of it, right? And then they're telling you, okay, this is it. So liken it to a situation of an architect and the builder, right? So the architect has done everything. The architect has done everything, so it's left for the builder to implement what is on paper. The same thing. So you are almost always every time given a design, right? So your job is to bring that design to life, right? So that is the same way I am trying to do at basic form. That's why I said, okay, since we don't have a Figma design, I have, but maybe that will be another assignment for another day, right? I don't have a Figma design, so what I'm going to do is just going to be use a sample design, which is this slide, and I want to achieve it. All right, so first and foremost, we have done this one. The next one is to do is we want to achieve this particular text. How do we go about it? Somebody should unmute himself and speak. I'm listening. Please unmute yourself and speak.
You can open that paragraph.
Okay. Why paragraph? Why not H2?
Because it's not another heading. It's just a paragraph under the first paragraph.
How
Under
about
the first
span?
heading.
But you're right though. Paragraph it is. Don't mind me. I was just asking.
Yeah, that was what I said. It's not another heading.
Okay.
It's a paragraph. Yeah, it's just like a body of that heading.
Okay, you're correct. Thank you. Right. So we have two paragraphs like this. So I'm going to open another paragraph for the second one. Let's preview it on the screen. Now, notice it's already taking shape, right? But it's taking shape, but we don't have like similar color or similar stuff. So we're getting there though, right? So, and then the next one is to add this image. How do we go about it? Let me see. Can I download this exact image? If I can't, we'll just use a random image. Okay. Anyway, we'll just use a random image. So, yes. Has anybody ever worked with image and image tag before? How do we go about it?
So, image.
Okay.
And we call there is an attribute. There is an inline attribute source. Yes. So when you click on source, you now link it to where it is on your the source of the image.
Okay.
Then you can define whether you can define the width, then the
height,
the dimension. Yes, and you can define dimension as well within the tag.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what about attribute? I don't know if you know
Yes.
about the alt attribute.
So alt attribute is when, let's for instance, the network is bad and the person cannot load the image properly. So the alt would be displayed. And also for those that need, for accessibility sake, for those that need support. So screen reader actually read alt.
Alt attribute.
I think I'm right.
Thank you. Please let it not be only one person talking. I think I've heard two people's voice, right? I need more of us to answer, but that's correct actually. Thank you so much. Right. So a quick one in addition to what you said. you said I have to link it to the image. But now, most times when we build a project come in like a folder. So take for instance now, this project now is in this HTML practice. If you notice, this HTML practice is what we are really working on, HTML practice, right? And then as a front-end developer, when you're done, you're most likely uploading all the content of this folder to your server, right? To whatever you are hosting, to wherever you are hosting your project, right? So on a norm, the images I want to use are in my downloads. I can link it from here to my downloads, but I can't be uploading my downloads to my server, right? So what I would do is, there's what we call assets. So I'll create a folder named assets, right? That will hold all my assets like this. So that way I can now easily upload my assets. Now for structure's sake, I can still break down my assets to more folders. I say, okay, this one is for icons like this. This one is for icons. This one is for icons like this. This one is for images like this. You can even have another folder for fonts, right? You can have another folder for SVGs. SVG is another form of icon, but we'll talk about that more on that later. So this is it here. So I've broken down the assets, but because we are not really concerned about having fonts, having icons, and having images separately. There are even icons that are audio, right? So I think I've worked with 1 or 2 projects that has though you would most likely not be seeing much of those kind of projects, but you have audio, right? Audio is also an asset. You can even have video, right? So video too can be an asset. Now all those are subfolders of this asset. So if you check that same folder we are working on, HTML practice, right, you see assets. Now inside asset there's audio, there's font, there's icon, there's image, there's video, right? Is what is reflecting here. So basically it's the way I'm navigating this folder. That's the same way I'm browsing this file explorer here. They call it file explorer or folder explorer. On Mac it's called a finder. So right, so but for the sake of this little task example we are doing, I would just use the asset folder because we're only going to concern ourselves with images. So there's no need to create all this. Now, to be honest, understanding this folder structure is key because there are different ways people set up folder structure for every project, right? This is why I'm teaching you this, because I have experienced it, and to be honest, right, that's why learning together, learning with a mentor, learning with someone who has known, you get some little knowledge that stands you out. And till date, right, a lot of developers like myself like platforms like Frontend Masters. Though it's a paid platform for learning, but there's a way to get a free resource. For anybody interested, right, I can help you get access to their platform and to help your growth very well, because what they do, their tutorials in form of workshops, and they are learning from front-end masters, like the name implied. Basically, now they are no longer even just all about front-end. They now do full stack, or what they call it, and full stack involves back-end, front-end. They even do mobile. I took a course on Flutter, right, there, and that was like the best Flutter course I have taken. I know there are other Flutter courses or there are documentations, but because they teach it in terms of their experience, you will see people from Google, from Netflix, from LinkedIn teaching you, right? People who are engineers working there. So yes, that's another platform I recommend. So if you need access to front-end masters, I think in a year subscription is about $300. I don't know the current price right now. So, but if you need access like 6 months, there are free ways to get access to it, and if you utilize it very well, to be honest, your growth will be very much. Right? So folder structure, why I was explaining folder structure, is very important because different projects have different folder structure and is good for architecture, right? Don't worry, more on that when we continue. But for the sake of this, I will delete the other folders I created. And yes, I'll delete them and just add my image to the assets folder. So let me bring in my image. I can easily drag my image directly to the assets folder. Right, and my image is there. Now, another best practice to do is to rename your image properly. See this image now, because of this space, I can link it though, but there'll be like a little bit of issues. Now, this is a good way to link it on VS Code. It's very easy. On the norm, I'm supposed to come like this. I put dots, then it's open the assets folder for me. Then I'll bring in the traffic light, right? And then this space between this traffic and light can sometimes cause a lot of trouble. It will show up now, but sometimes you'll be looking for where you did something wrong, but it didn't show up, right? So basically, it showed up now. But the best practice is for you to rename images like this and add either hyphen or underscore. Right? So I can put dash and dash. So that way, I have to change the name here to what I have. So I can start typing it out and VS Code suggests it for me. Do you get? So another way to link these assets. So let me explain what I just did now, how the link work. Where this HTML, this example one is currently inside HTML practice. Right? So if I want to go inside this asset and get an image from there, all I just need to do is type dot and /, right? So it gives me everything in the same path. Then I go inside the assets and then go inside the image, basically. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is right click on that asset and then copy relative paths. So as soon as you copy that relative path and you paste it, it also works, basically. So it also works, and then you would see your image. Right, so but I'll go with the previous one. Instead of copying that relative path, go to assets and traffic light O1 JPO. So for this alt attributes, all I just need to do is give it a very descriptive text. I can say an image of a traffic light. So what do I do in this case? Right? It might be capital letter or small letter. What do I do in this case for alt attributes? Most times developers neglect alt attributes, but me, what I do is I try to picture myself as someone who is using the screen reader to read. Yes, I know we'll say God forbid we'll not get to that level, right? Our eyes will still function, but there are people in that situation, and what would you want this image to be communicated to them, right? So some people can even be very descriptive, a bright image of a traffic light, right? So this is a very good description. So if peradventure you didn't link the name properly or network did not load well, that's what you'll be seeing. Right, so it's still loading. So you see a bright image of a traffic light. So just so you know, this is the function of the alt attribute. But once it loads properly, right, you get to see the image. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to achieve similar style. Right, so when I mean similar style, in terms of this header has to be blue, this has to be a little bit smaller. Right. Okay, now we can even get example. This is the font size is 13, right? The font size for this one is 36, but the font size is 13, right? So maybe subsequently we'll talk about fonts, because yes, if you look at it, the font here is different from what we have, but we're not going to be concerning ourselves much with fonts this evening, right? So what we want to do is, because different fonts will determine how they look for their font size. Right, so we want to now introduce a little bit of CSS to this particular thing we just worked on. Right, so how do we go about it? Somebody should say something here. This is why I'm trying to understand, explain to us whatever is going on. Yes, speak. Hello? Somebody wants to say something. Somebody just unmuted their mic. Please talk.
You give the H1 a class.
Okay, so yes, you're saying we should give it a class attribute, right? So what I want to hear first and foremost is which type of CSS styling are we going with? Is it the inline or is it the one we use with?
External, we should go for the external.
Okay, we should go for the external styling, right? So that means to say we're going to create
another CSS.
CSS. Okay.
The CSS red.
Alright. Yes, there's CSS here, but this CSS is for this particular HTML. Right. Okay, so here's one thing I want to say. That's a good suggestion. Well done. But let me quickly explain something. Can you hear me? Okay, so now when making technical decisions, guys, there are different factors you should consider. The first one is how complex this thing is currently. How complex is it going to get? Right. So sometimes some things we do are described as overkill. Right, so like over engineering, yeah, what's like overkill, over engineering. So for the sake of this particular text, right, using external style would have been great, right, if we're going to be doing something much more complex, right? But
please, I think some people need to mute their mics so that I can hear you properly.
Okay, thank you. So using external style like this, okay, let me start with the external style. Let me say example 1.css, right? So we try to link it up in the header tag. Let's say style sheet, or say link, then CSS. Now the tag is link CSS, so I'm just going to copy the name of this thing and say example 1.css. So that way we are in example 1.css, and then I give this place a class. Right, it works basically. So let's even start with this. I can say header. Right, so I can say header and then style it because I'm giving it a class. I can start with the class header. Alright, so there are some tips and tricks I'll be giving us on the way. See, now I have to be jumping from HTML to example most times to be doing what I'm doing. But one of the superpower VS Code gives you is the fact that you can split screens. So I can just right click on this example and then split it to the right or the left. So if I split to the right, now I can see my CSS here and my HTML here. I could even adjust them properly. Right? Because HTML needs more space than CSS, I can adjust this guy. Right? So now I have linked it with a CSS to this CSS example 1.css, and then for this H1 I am going to give it a class name and try to style the class. Now the first thing first is let's try to get the color. The color is blue. Right, so let me just use the generic blue. I know the blue will not match the blue, but let's just look at it that way. Let's start with that, and probably we'll try to see. So blue, and I save. Right, I hit Ctrl S, or let me just go to File and click on Save. But most times, Ctrl S is the fastest way. Some people even leave it at auto save, so I don't need to even be hitting Ctrl S. Right, so you go to File, you put it on auto save. But with experience, I have known not to leave it on auto save because sometimes it will just be throwing unnecessary error. Your code will keep reloading when you've not done what you want to do, right? And it could even crash your server at some point. Like everybody have different experience, different folk for different strokes for different folk, right? So while I'm teaching you now, I'm teaching and I'm also mentoring. I'm also telling you things that have worked for me and things that have not worked for me, right? So header 1. Let's check out our UI implementation. So we see that it is blue already, right? But if you notice, this text down is looking big compared to what we have right here. So we can continue with this external style sheet, which is the example1.css. But like I was trying to explain, right, this would be me creating multiple files and doing multiple things, right? Like, so for example, now I started with explaining the fact that for assets, you can create multiple folders, assets for font, assets for icon, asset for image. But because this project is very small and we know we're not going to be increasing or scaling it beyond what it is, I just restricted my image to be in the asset folder, right? So most times, those are where we take technical decisions on, right? This is like a very, very experienced decision, basically. When I was a junior developer, those things don't matter. I'm like, oh, let me share is for it to work. But to be honest, going forward, you will start making some decisions that you will consider, oh, okay, what's the costs in terms of space? What's the cost in terms of load time? What's the cost in terms of speed? Do you get? So those are the things that will decide how you write some certain codes or do some certain things, right? So for space optimization, I know this is very trivial, it's very small, it's negligible, you can ignore it. But let's just look at it as a very big thing, right? Let's optimize space for now and take away this example1.css. So we are going to be working mainly with our style. Let's even start with the inline styling. So I can just say style, right? And then the color. What is the color? I can choose blue, right? So this is, I'm using my style attribute to style this guy, right? Don't worry, subsequently we'll even be doing, you start working with things like what's the name? Bootstrap, things like Tailwind CSS or styled components. Those are like, should I say, advanced CSS frameworks, right? But to be honest, there was a time I was against even using CSS framework, but I grew out of that because in my head, if you don't know how to do CSS, you want to go and be using like advanced CSS frameworks. Why? Because to be honest, I don't used to hate people that don't understand CSS but they want to do CSS framework. But the good thing is, once you understand basic CSS, right, today, and I tell you, okay, we're working with Chakra UI next week. Chakra UI is an advanced CSS framework for React, I guess. Yes, I don't know if they've expanded to other JavaScript framework, but yeah, you're working with Chakra UI, you're working with style sheet component, styled component rather, and then you're working with Tailwind CSS, you're working with Bootstrap. Any framework, as far as CSS is what they are managing, once you understand basic CSS, all you just need to do working with all those style sheet framework. To be honest, people think I oversimplify things, but I feel from experience, those things are as simple as they sound, but the name used to be very intimidating. Now I'll tell you, today we're going to be working with Tailwind CSS. You see the name is very big, Tailwind CSS. Well, yes, it is big. So me that understand my basic CSS now, all I just need to do is go and read up what's Tailwind CSS all about. How do you add it to your project? and then open the documentation on one side for beginners. So, but with time, you may not need much of the documentation. So I'll be like, oh, okay, to achieve color blue, how do I achieve it on Tailwind CSS? You go to the documentation, you search it, and you'll be like, oh, this is how to do it, this is how to do it. Next time you won't search it. So that's how you build experience. Right. So yes, color blue. And I think I'm okay with the font size, because if I say I'm to use the exact font size for this font, for this particular font type, they used Railway, it will be too big. But let's test it out first. So the font size is 36. Because I'm not working with the exact font type, I can just say, okay, font size, and say 36. It's not just any 36, it's 36 pixels. Right. So let's check. What does it look like on the screen? It's pretty much big. It's big. Right. But let's just leave it at that default, what it is. Right. So I'll just take away that font type 36. Alright, so the next one we're looking at to just adjust this font size of this one. Is big, right? So what did they use? Let's start with what they used, 13. Assuming we were using this exact font, I beg you not to deviate from the font size, right? But because we're not using this exact font, we can go ahead to try to, you see, one thing as a developer or as a front-end developer is, when you're given a design, first and foremost, you have to work with the pixel, the exact specification. But then there are sometimes you make adjustments outside the specification, not because the specification, what is giving you on Figma is different from what you're collecting on Figma. You're trying to do is the implementation is different from what you're seeing. So you just need to go outside that. That's what makes great developers from just regular developers. The ability to just go outside what you're giving and try to achieve the goal or the aim. So here now I want to reduce this one. Let's try with 13. And to be honest, it's very easy to, let me use the style attribute, sorry. It's very easy to add like custom font to your project. Right? Well, you see, we have literally exhausted today's time, and I've not started today's class because I just want us to piece together this thing. Right? Because today's class now, we're supposed to be introducing JavaScript, right? But if I start introducing JavaScript now and you don't even understand some of these basics, you'll just be lost. Like, you will be so lost. JavaScript is a journey. I call JavaScript a journey. All these ones, they are still like destinations. Well, HTML and CSS is like a 500-meter race and all. You can learn to an extent and just leave it and say, okay, you know some, but you just need to keep updating your knowledge because there are different techniques and different ways to advance your what's in development. But did somebody raise up their hand, or is it time?
Yes, good evening. Sorry, I joined late. I just joined. But my question is, if you have the Figma design, how are you able to get the pixel of the letter, like the size, the font size?
Okay, of the letter. So let's go to a Figma design. Let me use an example. So this is a Figma design. Right. Before, Figma used to do something that, at least, anyway, every organization is for profit. Sorry, I'm coming. It's taking time to load. So this is a Figma design. Right. If you want to get, say this is your go-to platform for flexible and reliable cleaning service, right? There are two things. Once you hit, just try to focus on that text and click on it, right? You will see something like this coming. One sec. Oh, because I have edit access for this guy, it may not give the exact thing. I'll look for a project I don't have edit access on. right? So that you see. But most times, when I know it's a project I'll be working long term on, I either request edit access or duplicate that project so that I can have edit access, because with edit access you can have a lot of access to like getting the. Let me open another file that I don't have edit access on. Right, so I'm coming 1 sec back to files. I'll show it to you now. It's quite easy. On the norm before, you will just click on it and you see where you see all the CSS properties, right? But that feature, they made it, I think late last year, that feature became a premium feature. So you have to pay to have access to it. But still, to me, I don't still see why. Like, okay, for me now, I have been a designer, or should I say a graphic designer, way long before I became a front-end developer, like professionally. So I know my way around Figma. So when they made that premium feature, right, I know a lot of people were going to struggle, but for me, it was not much of a big deal. Come in, let me open a project. Which project do I not have access? Design. Most times I even try to, okay, let me use this guy. Yes. So if you notice, I duplicated that project so that I have edit access, because it gives me like access to understanding some of the, should I say, the properties of any element given. Sorry, I'm trying to open this page so that I'll show you how to get the properties. Take for instance now the font size, the font type, and what have you, and even the spaces to margin and padding. Okay, so here is it. Right, I don't have edit access to this particular guy, but I want to get to know what is it. All I just need to do is keep clicking on that particular guy. Right. So when you click on it and you know it's focused on that text, you come to this pane and you get to see, oh, okay, the font is this, font weight is this is the font size 60, right, and line height and what have you, right? So, but with edit access, I can even get to know more. Okay, what's the space between this guy and this guy? What's the designer space? Well, with experience, you can take a look at this and just walk around the spaces, margin spaces you want to give, but just keep clicking it, you get to see what it is. I don't know if I answered your question. Can you hear me? Hello? Please, am I still on? Somebody should confirm.
Yes. I think I'm getting the point. Sorry, I'm just new to the airport. Yes, you are here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you. Go on.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Oh, I think there's a.
Should I go on?
Please go on.
Okay. So I'm new to the ecosystem, so no prior experience. So the Figma designer will give like a page that you can get access to. That like if you click on the words that will show the right side page. So is this something that you get access to once?
Yes, no, it's a normal. So
making a point here.
This two, you see this two pane by the side, right? Is a normal thing on Figma designs, right? It always comes with every Figma design. Though some are hidden by default, some you can hide it. So see this one, I have hidden it. There's a command to hide it. But if you don't see it, just right click anywhere and show or hide UI, right? So that way you can, this place now is just to, this is the structure, the frame of each of them, the home and all. This place gives you better access to the properties of each of them. So take for instance, now you see this background, I want to know what kind of color it is. It gives me the color code. All I just need to do is double click on that property, keep clicking on it till it says focused, right? Take for instance now, because sometimes it is nested inside a container, it's nested inside that container and all. So I keep clicking. See, See now, I keep clicking till I get to focus on this text. Now from there, I go to the side here and just wait, that's gone away again. Let me click. So it's focused on it now. So once I come to the side now, all I just need to do is scroll up. Now I can get to see the font type, the font width, the font size, line height, the what's name, even the color too. See the color code, right? So this way you get to see everything. So that's just it. Figma is not hard to navigate. And then if there's anyone that is hard to actually get, to be honest, right, we're the one complicating things for ourselves. All you just need to do is communicate to the designer, say, oh, see this thing, I don't know, what's the color code? I'm trying to get it, I'm not getting it, right? It's good to even build a good relationship with your teammates. They can easily tell you, oh, the color code for this guy is this, right? Sometimes if some things you implement, your designer will tell you, that your color code or your color is different from what I used though. Simple. You as a front-end developer too, you can even challenge some things on the design and tell them, oh, this design, technically, I don't think. Sometimes I see there, I say, this one is not UI design, this one is graphics design. And you want me to implement graphics design, it's just playfully, right? You're not trying to underrate or undermine the person's work, but it's just a good
Someone's work. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, of communicating. So sometimes if you can't get it, reach out to them, oh, this and all. But it's a very simple thing.
Okay, thank you very much. That was well explained. Like, do you think there's a way someone could get a UI UX, like something like this, to work on? I think it will make work easier and faster. At least you have a goal you are working towards, like for.
Okay, so for for assignment or something, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, something you can just work on personally to build your speed and skill set.
Yes. Yeah, for me, I have a couple of designs I could share with you guys, or I would share with you guys, right? But to some people, if I give you this whole thing to implement now, it's quite advanced, right? And to some people, it's beans. If you notice, was it yesterday or today? I shared a job on our platform, right? With 3 years experience. I know there are people who would get the job, right? There was times I joined a community like this learning, and I think I was way ahead of what they were teaching at some point, right? So opportunities like that to help people like that. So yes, we'll get to the point where I'll share designs like this for us to do, right? And we're getting there. But I just wanted to cover up on the basic because we have a syllabus to work with. Yes, I shared the syllabus with us last week. Let me share it. Let me show you again. So this is it here. Right. So for week 1 and week 2, to be honest, right, I thought everybody here would have understood the basics of HTML and CSS. Then we'll just dive into JavaScript, talk about it, and then start React. But I just need to bring some people up to speed. But yeah, subsequently, I'll find a way to see. I'm trying to look at work based on the majority of the crowd, right? To see, what's the knowledge gap of these guys? What's the knowledge gap of this guy? If it's even, there's a way I'll take the class. If it's not even, right? And the most of, let's say, 80% or 90% of people have a particular knowledge, then I'll have to work based on that and then try to reach out to the people with lesser knowledge to bring them up to speed. So yeah, here's it. Week 1, which was last week, ended last week. We're in week 2 now. Right. So week 2. Okay, sorry, week 2 was last week. Week 1 was the Saturday we met. Week 2 was supposed to be CSS, and we're just going to review all this. Now, week 3, which is this week, we're supposed to start JavaScript. Though, the good thing is we're meeting on Saturday to this week. Right? I don't know, the venue has not been communicated, but it could be the last venue we're using. So, week 3, we're supposed to start JavaScript. Well, on Saturday, I would just use the opportunity to kickstart JavaScript. So, I just wanted us to get those who are like with limited knowledge to get a basic grasp of what we are doing. Right. So, let's just quickly finish styling up this thing. We'll talk about what is next, and then hopefully we'll see you on Saturday. Right. So this is like a continuation of last week's class. Right. So what we want to do next now is to reduce these texts. So let's get to see, let's play around it. What is the initial font type given, or the font size is 13. Right. So let's come style. Let's give this guy font size. Font size. You don't need to count much. You don't need to count anything. Just understand how it works. Font size 13 pixels. There are different. So let's see, how does 13 pixel work? How does 13 pixel will look on the screen? Okay, so if you notice, it's getting smaller, but we need it to be smaller though than this. So I can just say, let me put it at 10, and 10 it is. I know the line is, yes, so at some point it's not even full. It got broken at what? It will also simulate that. But let me see, how does 10 look like? Save it and go to, yes, so 10 looks perfect, because when we break it now, right, we would have that on, or let me just leave it at 12. So 12. Now, if you notice from our design, which is this slide we're trying to work with, from our design, which is this slide, we're trying to break this line here. Now, there are two ways to go about this, but let me just do it the basic way. The basic way is just to add our BR tag to wherever it is broken. So BR tag is just to break it. Right? I was going to ask that question, but because of our time, let me just, so I can add the BR tag here. So if you notice, this is how the BR tag is. It's just to break whatever we have into two. So if I save it now, I would see that the line is broken. So you see, but the line has been broken. Now, since this text also follows the pattern here, we just need to copy the style here and paste it here. Now, the good thing is, another thing we can do is we could have a class or an ID that will style everything all at once. But because I'm assuming this class is as basic as possible, yes, if you notice, it has reduced now. Another thing to consider as a developer is this space in between. But for the purpose of this class, we'll leave that space the way it is, because on the norm, if I'm to do pixel perfect, or if we're to do pixel perfect of this implementation, I have to consider the space between this guy and this guy, the space between this guy and this guy, because it's part of the design, right? And that's why I told us to go and read up or to check up on the box model. That box model is pretty much very important. Right. So the last thing we'll do now is to reduce the image. The image looks too big. Right. So let's just see. I don't know. Is there a possibility we can get the dimension of this image? I doubt. So we could also just, but this image, let me just give it a width of like 200 pixels. I can either use style tag to work on this, or image by default has a width attribute. So I can say 200 pixels. So it's small. If you notice, it has come to that level. But it still looks okay. Yes, we're almost at the same level. Right. So if you notice, right, is that the particular I'm just trying to follow this particular style. Right. Another thing to consider is fonts, the custom fonts and all. So lastly, I think, let me just see. Okay, so this color now is not directly blue. This blue is different from this blue. I'm just using the direct blue here. But on CSS, there are ways to add the color, right? So you could use the hexadecimal code, you could use the RGBA value, and you could use the direct name. And then there's another one again. Is it Excel or something? Please, you can read up on it on W3 Schools.
HSL.
HSL, yes, HSL. But The most common one you are going to be coming across is color code using hexadecimal. Right? Even Figma, so that's what they will give you. And then maybe subsequently, once you'll be using RGBA. RGB, the A is just for the transparency. RGBA. What's that A? RGBA.
Opacity.
Yes, opacity. So the A is the I wanted to know what the A is. Okay, they call it an alpha channel. So most times the A is just to determine the opacity, how bold or how big it is. But yes, like I said, it's the RGBA. So let's try and get the RGBA, the hexadecimal code for this guy. Let me see. Yes, so this is the hexadecimal code. So let me copy that out. Right, and then try to use it here. So instead of using blue, I can paste it. It's just hash and whatever. So now, this is what I'm teaching you, right? I'm teaching you to be a front-end developer such a way that you're not giving Semo as a design to implement, and you're implementing Fufu, or you're implementing anything else. That's why I'm very specific about this, because this gives you an edge as a front-end developer. Most people have their strength on JavaScript. Some other people have their strength on some other things. But when you are well-rounded, to be honest, you stand an edge, right? There are some people right now, I could literally, maybe I have a job, I know who is hiring now, and I have worked with them before, and maybe I know they are in need of a job, or I don't even know. I could literally tell the person who is hiring that, I've worked with this person before, and I think the person is very good, right? So the person is good. I say, okay, please help me get their CV or send their CV. And to be honest, that's the most way people get jobs right now. Yes, you can apply directly, you will get, but the fastest way to get is through recommendation. This is me telling you from experience, right? So, but that doesn't mean you stop applying. You keep applying. People get jobs through applications too. So, but you have to be able to have built what we call social currency. So that way now, should I say technical currency in this sense, because I have worked with you, I know what you can do. Right? So, but if I have worked with you and I see that this guy not too savvy, and the opportunity comes, I wouldn't want to put my reputation on the line, because if I tell them, this person is good, and you go there and you are doing amala when you are told to implement pounded yam or poundo, right? It's now because me now I have lost the credibility. I've recommended you, but you don't know. So that's why you have to just be well-rounded, right? From design to logic and the likes of them, right? So this is my way of just showing you that okay, HTML is like a canvas. Today's class now is HTML is a canvas. When you are given a picture, all you just need to do is repaint those pictures using your code, right? So yes, our time is fast spent, but I would likely extend this time to 9 p.m. So I'll extend it to 9 p.m. So we have 10 minutes more. And I'll use the opportunity to talk about a little bit of JavaScript, right? And in our next class, we will continue. So, yes, JavaScript it has become very common in recent time. Before, I think in 2019 or 2018, when you're telling people JavaScript, you sound like an alien, right? Most people don't know what JavaScript is. You'll be like, bros, like only you. But now JavaScript and web development is very popular. And JavaScript right now, as it stands, is the most popular programming language. Why is it very popular? You can't call web or website without calling JavaScript. No matter what they say they are using on the web, if they tell you, their technology is Java, their technology is PHP, their technology is Python, right? Beside it, they are using JavaScript too. right? Well, those technologies usually are for server side, right? But you see your client side, which is basically your front end and UI, you can't skip JavaScript, right? Even Google have tried to replace JavaScript before, but it did not work. So they turned that project to something else. So the language that runs Flutter today, the initial attempt for that language was to replace JavaScript on the web. Now let me tell you how important it is. So you see this web browser, right? I can literally run JavaScript on it without installing anything. So all I just need to do is go to console and we're good to go. So here now, this is a JavaScript playing ground, right? I can start. What's the basic one? 1 plus 1. It gives me 2. You see, bar. So this is JavaScript that literally calculated this for you to be 2. I can say, okay. You can literally do basic maths with JavaScript, right? So this is the fastest way to actually even test any JavaScript you're doing. Open your console on your browser and test. There's what we call variables, which I'm going to talk more about for those that don't understand, right? I can declare, they're like containers. So I can say, okay, var a is 1, or should I say is 50. I have stored this 50 inside this container. It's called assigning. I'm assigning it to it. Var b is 10. It's 10. So anywhere I see a now, a is representing 50, or a contains 50. Anywhere I see b, b contains. So if I literally say, oh, a times b, right? So it's giving me the value of 550 times 10, which is 500. Do you see? Right. So this is JavaScript at play. So I can say, okay, a times a. Now a times a simply means 50 times 50, which is 2500. So I'm even doing basic calculator already using JavaScript, and I can say times or plus b. You see, bar. Is already giving us stuff. So there was one day it was April, and then I got online and
I can't see your screen though.
Oh, you can't see can anybody see my screen? Hello?
Yes, your screen is visible here.
I can't see your screen. I've been trying to look at network.
Wait, let me see. I think it's network.
Am I the only one who?
I can see your screen, sir.
Oh, okay. I thought I was talking with blank page.
Let me
reshare again. Let me see.
All right, please do. Thank you.
Can you see my screen now? It's coming up though.
Yeah, it's coming up.
How about now? Can you see?
I can't see. It's my bit network. And I would have loved to.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Though it will show up very well on the recording. I'm doing well to record it. So he has left the call. Alright, so yes, you can actually go back to take a look at the recording. Alright, so this is JavaScript. So JavaScript literally runs the web. So there's no web browser you pop up, right, that you cannot run JavaScript on, because JavaScript is the language of the web.
You can see now.
Yes, and JavaScript is the language of the web, right? So, like I said, Google tried to replace it with that, but it didn't work because it didn't work. You can find out more about it, but they knew that, well, that's like a failed project on start already, so they converted it to something else. Anyway, so like I was trying to introduce, JavaScript is the world's most popular programming language. Now, every Tom, Dick, and Harry uses JavaScript. On your phone, your mobile app too, the base technology is JavaScript, right? Some of the apps, I know some apps that run React Native and the likes, or Ionic. Then for server side too, they use JavaScript. So JavaScript is very, 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 very popular, right? And to be honest, JavaScript is this. Should I say it's the simplest or one of the simplest language? Let me use one of the, if not the simplest. Right now, for those starting out, you're going to see a lot of magic, and you're going to question your own intelligence and say, "Oh, wait, oh, am I sure I'm actually understanding this?" Right? That's why I'm here, to make it simpler. But from somebody who studied computer science, so I've worked with other programming languages, right, on other projects. Just so you know, this is the simplest, one of the simplest. Well, JavaScript and Python, should I say, let me put them in that way. Right, those are like one of the simplest languages you would come across. The others are still easy to get though, but JavaScript is like, how do I liken it now? I'm looking for a very simple thing to do, right? Well, I can't get an example now, but JavaScript is simple. Take it from me, and with that mindset, you get to learn JavaScript. Well, so that being said, our time is almost up. JavaScript is, I established the fact that it's the most popular language. JavaScript is the programming language of the web. So any browser you open has JavaScript in it, right? For easy access for the web to run. JavaScript is easy to learn. On our first class, I talked about why we need JavaScript, right? So let me show us an example. So this is W3 schools, okay, introduction. So you see this example, right? This is all done with HTML and CSS, this particular part. But then there's a functionality to turn on the light and turn off the light. So this is pure JavaScript. We're on and on the light. So it's like we've wired the house now with electricity using JavaScript after building the house. I don't know. Well, do you understand what is happening here? I'm fascinated to know if somebody understands what is happening here. Use your idea. You might be right, you might be wrong, but just say something. Somebody should say something. Who understand what's happening here?
The page is responsive.
Okay, so I don't know. I need a little bit more detail. Like, if you can explain what they are probably doing here with HTML or with JavaScript. And by the way, when you say the page is responsive, I understand what you're saying. No, like, well, we can actually interact with it, but technically that's a different communication. This is when you say the page is responsive. This is what you're actually saying. Right. So let me show
you. Are running a condition.
Okay. So when you say the page is responsive, let me explain what the page is responsive is. So now, the page, this is a desktop view, right, of the page. Now imagine the page now keeps getting smaller and smaller to a phone size, right? Notice there are changes in the page. The side menu hides. Are you seeing? And then we have a menu for mobile phone. So at least it fits all screen size. So basically this is a mobile phone. I'm using it to access W3 schools. Right. So this is, so if I increase it, I'm going to a desktop screen like this. No, this is like a tab now. This is a tab. So see this tab, right? And then from there, this is a big screen. See this big screen. So the ability for the page to actually respond and not be useless. Maybe you built it for mobile, for desktop view, right? There's a way it will still adjust for mobile view. It's called responsiveness, right? So I just did this demo to actually just give you a brief correction on that. So talking about technical communication now, I get what you were trying to say, but when you say the page is responsive, maybe I don't know what you're talking about, but I understand what responsiveness is. In my head will just go like, okay, that's like, okay, the ability for you to adapt to any screen, right? Responsiveness. So, okay, someone said they are using condition. Can you be a bit specific with that condition? I just want us to think a little bit and then I'll
So,
explain. Continue.
okay, so it is like an if condition. So if turn on the light is clicked, the image will show to another. I will be like it will be replaced with another image,
Okay.
and when the turn off is clicked, another one will be replaced there.
Okay. So I think basically that's what's happening, right? They have two HTML image. One is this one with gray, one in light form. So once you click on turn on, we're using the JavaScript functionality to actually replace the image with a light image. Then when you say turn off, you are replacing it back, right? Like you explained. So if you try it yourself, let's look at it, right, and just see what is going on behind the scenes. So I'm just going to tell you some of the dynamism you guys experience on web when you're browsing. Maybe you like somebody's comments or you repost. Let's just say you share, you comment, right? Well, HTML and CSS is working, but you see all those functionality, those dynamism, right? It's JavaScript that really literally gives those power. So if you notice, they have to image, right? They have to image. This is the image. By default, the image source is bulb off. Bulb off.gif is a separate image from bulb on. Right? So all they are doing is, they are listening for a click on this button, which is turn on the light. Now, after that click occurs, they get the image tag and just replace the source of the image to a bulb on.gif. Right, so it gets replaced, but by default it's bulb off that was there. So when you click, you replace this one here. What this line of code is doing is getting element by ID. What's the ID? My image, which is the ID of this image, and then replacing the source with bulb on.gif. Right, so replacing it with bulb on.gif when it's on. So when it's off, they just get that same element by ID, which is this image, and then they are replacing it with bulb off, right? And that is what JavaScript can do. Now, behind the scene, to be honest, then when you now start going in depth, there are some things that used to maybe you feel is magic or used to wow you before you start understanding how they work underneath it, right? And you'll be like, oh, okay, well, this is what, or some of them you start imagining, you can be curious like me and just get to know what is going on. I destroyed a lot of gadgets when I was growing up in my house because I just wanted to know what is going on inside. That's how curious I was when I was small. Well, till now, my mom still tease me on some of those things. I still say I must replace some certain things when I grow up. But that's just a joke, basically, because I destroyed a lot of things. Right? So this is why JavaScript is very, very important to the web. Right? Our time is fast spent. I would have loved to continue, but I need to go do some other things. And thank you so much for joining the class for today. If you notice, I've even prepared the slide for today, but we continue on Saturday when we meet by 1 p.m. rather. So 1 p.m. on Saturday. The venue will be communicated to us. I don't know if anybody has any question, please, before we leave. If you have a question, now is the time. We can talk about it quickly. But if you don't have a question, we can actually leave. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful evening. See us on Saturday.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, bye.